Panel. Side proposition lives in a fantasy world where advanced technology can be built on good intentions alone. They assume that if OpenAI had stayed a small, capped profit company, it would have peacefully developed the perfect AI over decades, completely safe and insulated from the real market. But the real world doesn't work like that. Building advanced AI is not a philosophical project. It is one of the most expensive and competitive engineering race in human history right now. Side opposition do not regret OpenAI's transition to a commercial structure because our core philosophy is very simple. This transition was not an act of corporate greed, it was an absolute necessity to keep the world's leading AI model under the control of a safety-conscious team rather than surrendering the future of AI to unconstrained tech monopolies or foreign control. And so because of that, we stand proudly to oppose this motion. Now, let us look at the context of this motion. Side proposition wants us to look back at OpenAI's history and regret its structural shift. We explicitly accept the timeline of what had happened for the sake of this debate, which is that OpenAI realized its original non-profit and capped profit models could not sustain the massive cost of development. So they shifted to attract major investment from companies like Microsoft. However, we completely reject side proposition's impact. They argue that this change just caused a lot of hype and made them launch products before checking if they were safe. Therefore, in this debate, we must compare the real world with the side proposition's alternative world. Because in their world, OpenAI puts a strict limit on how much money investors can make back. In our world, the real world, OpenAI removed those limits to get the massive amounts of money needed to survive. We will prove to you that capping profits doesn't give you enough financial power for the massive scale that modern AI needs. Because side proposition's case relies on three major flaws which I'll be breaking down right now. First, they claim that a capped profit structure gets plenty of funding, pointing out that Microsoft invested $1 billion early on. But here's the problem. Building advanced AI today doesn't cost $1 billion anymore. It costs $100 billion. You have to build massive data centers, buy millions of advanced microchips, and pay for a massive amount of electricity. And when you tell big investors that their profits are crap, they will take their money somewhere else. Because why would an investor take a massive risk on OpenAI if their returns are limited, when they could just give their money to Google or Meta to make unlimited profits? Now, even if OpenAI gets that first billion, they hit a financial ceiling. They cannot raise the massive historic amounts of cash needed to actually build the future of AI. Secondly, they argue that capping profits attract the good guys who care about the world, while normal companies just bring in greedy people who only want money. This ignores how competitive the market actually is, because the best AI researchers in the world command millions of dollars because their skills are incredibly rare. Now, even if engineers care deeply about safety, they cannot do their jobs properly without the proper tools. If OpenAI cannot offer competitive compensation or the computing power to run experiments, those noble engineers will not stay. They will leave for other companies like Google DeepMind, Meta, and more. Thirdly, the PM says that staying non-profit allows OpenAI to wait 30 years to release a product safely. However, if OpenAI stops pushing, the rest of the world does not stop with them. Google, Meta, and state-backed actors in foreign nations will keep on pushing forward. But even if OpenAI takes 30 years to make a perfect product, they will be completely irrelevant by the time they finish. But panel, let's completely give side proposition their absolute best case scenario. Even if they are entirely right, and even if OpenAI stays perfectly pure, safe, and never rushes a single product, what actually happens to the rest of the world? The rest of the world does not stop. While OpenAI is taking 30 years to build a perfect slow model, in their world, companies like Google, Meta, or tech giants in other countries are sprinting ahead with zero safety rules. While OpenAI is stuck being a small and slow, and on their side, other tech giants will take over the market. They will flood the side proposition's world with dangerous tech because OpenAI won't have the money to completely stop them. Their best case scenario still ends in total disaster. And that leads to two of our core arguments. First, on why you need big money to make AI safe, and second, on the anchor of leadership. Now, side proposition treats safety and commercialization as opposites. They think that spending money makes a product dangerous. But in the status quo of computer science, true AI safety is not just a set of rules written on paper. Safety is an incredibly expensive engineering problem. Now, first extraction. To make an AI safe, you need to run massive alignment tests, use expensive processes, and pay teams of experts to try and break the AI to find its weaknesses before it gets released. All of this requires massive computational power and money. Inside proposition's world, because OpenAI is stuck under a profit cap, they simply cannot raise the massive funds needed for this infrastructure. When a company hits a financial ceiling, expensive safety research is just the first thing that gets slowed down because they have to prioritize just keeping the basic operations going on. Second extraction. Now, look at today's status quo. When open source communities or underfunded labs try to build models, they often release them without any guardrails because they lack the funds to build safety filters. By partnering with other companies like Microsoft, OpenAI secured the billions of dollars necessary to fund the dedicated safety and alignment departments. Now, moving on to our second argument, first extraction. Because OpenAI transitioned to a commercial structure, they were able to launch ChatGPT first and become the dominant market leader. Now, why is this a massive benefit for safety, you might ask? Because in the real world, the market leader sets the rules that everyone else has to follow to compete. When OpenAI released ChatGPT with strict built-in safety guardrails, refusing to help users build weapons, write hate speech, or create malware, they created a new industry standard. Because the dominant product was safe and polite, every other tech giant that followed had to match those safety features just to look respectable to users and governments. Now, look at the status quo. When Google built Gemini, they immediately established internal safety boards and strict alignment protocols. Why, you may ask? Because OpenAI proved that a successful commercial AI must be a safe AI. Second extraction. If OpenAI had stayed a small, non-profit, the first mover in the AI space would have been a traditional tech giant driven entirely by advertising revenue and engagement clicks, or worse, an unregulated open source model with zero safety limits. By winning the commercial race, OpenAI used its financial power to force the entire tech ecosystem to care about alignment. That is a massive principal benefit that only happens in our world. Panel, in conclusion, this debate comes down to a very simple choice. Side proposition wishes for a world where OpenAI stayed pure but completely broken, sitting in the sidelines while aggressive tech monopolized and foreign states decided the future of AI. That is a world that goes into chaos where safety is completely ignored. We prefer the real world, a world where OpenAI made the tough, realistic choice to commercialize, securing the funding and talent needed to stay at the front of the race. And by doing so, they ensure that a safety-first company keeps its hand on the steering wheel of human progress. We do not regret this transition, we celebrate it, and that is why I have never been more proud to oppose. Thank you.